But seeing as how it is 7:02, and we do have a quorum, any issues if we call a meeting to order? All right, let's get rolling. All right, good evening, North.
This meeting is being recorded.
So seeing as how the time is 7:02, I will call to order the Thursday, March 11th edition of the Norton Select Board meeting. Let the record show that 3 members of the board are present. Ms. Arts and Mr. Toole are running a bit late. They will join us as soon as they can. Also present is Town Manager Michael Units. All right, we have a fairly short agenda this evening. First item up is a discussion and vote on special legislation for all alcohol package store licenses. So I know we have a special guest to talk to us tonight about that, and that would be Mr. Greg Corbo from Keller & Page. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm glad to have you join. So, Michael, you want to recap where we find ourselves?
Yeah. So, Greg, we're looking.
Mike, I'm sorry. Just to interrupt you. Michael just joined Jack at 7:02, and Michael, you may want to just recuse yourself for this portion of the conversation.
There we go. Thank you, Renee. Good catch. All right, back to.
Sorry, Mike.
All right. So we have a draft article for the warrant in May to get permission from the town meeting members to file special legislation seeking a couple more all alcohol package store licenses.
Right.
So we just wanted to see if you could fill us in on the process, as we go forward, how that would work.
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So, as you're aware, since you already have an article prepared, under Chapter 138 of the General Laws, Section 17, every town has a quota on the maximum number of different types of liquor licenses that it can issue based on its most recent census data. At this point, we are still operating under 2010 census data. I don't know when the new information for based on the 2020 census data will be available, and whether or not that would have a significant effect on what your quota is. But it's been common practice for years now that municipalities have the ability to go to the state legislature and ask for a special act to increase their quota by a certain amount. And the most common way that I've seen this done is for the town to have a specific either location or business in mind to have the license. And that is specified right in the special act. So let's say that you have a new retail shopping plaza opening, and there's restaurant space. So someone may lease out the restaurant space and then come to you and say, well, we would like to have a liquor license. And so in your special legislation, you can ask for permission to have one additional liquor license for that restaurant at that location. And most often those acts would say that that license can be transferred to another business at that location, but not to anywhere else. So if that the first restaurant who comes in does not end up being successful, they can then go and they can transfer that to someone else as long as it's exercised in that particular location. So that's the most common way that this has been done, but it's been done in other ways. I've seen examples of municipalities that just ask for a waiver of their quota. Some just ask for 2 or 3 additional licenses of a certain type. Others ask for additional licenses in certain areas of the town. So some municipalities are creating new downtown business districts. And so they might say, we want to have 2 additional licenses for the downtown business district. So there really is a pretty wide range of options for you as you decide what it is that you want to do in terms of asking for new licenses. And, and I know that a couple years ago, there was a push in the legislature to either get rid of or overhaul the quota system. And I don't know if that ended up gaining steam, but, if you go on the General Laws website, you can see just numerous examples of these types of special acts. And in fact, I read an article earlier that the legislature estimates that they pass about 30 of these a year. So, I don't think you're reinventing the wheel here by any stretch. I've worked on a number of these and could certainly provide you with an example, and other attorneys in our firm have worked on them as well. So, it's really up to you to decide, how you want to do this. The one thing I looked for but didn't really see, and this was in a specific question that Mike had posed in his initial email to me, and that is, well, once you get these 2 licenses, what's the procedure for making them available? And I really didn't come across any acts that address that question. So, certainly if you had some sort of procedure in mind, we could work that into the special act. But the default would be first come, first serve. So the first person to get their application in would get the first shot at it. And, it's always made clear whether the act is to just give you an additional license or to give you a license for a particular location or entity, that person still has to go through the application process. And their application has to get vetted through the police department. They have to provide notice to the abutters. They have to have a public hearing, that shows that they meet all of the Ballerin factors for operating an establishment that sells alcohol. So, the existence of the special act does not guarantee that any particular person will get the license, or even that anyone would get the license. And so once these 2 licenses are available, someone would have to come to you for an application, and you would process that application just like you would any other license application. And you would either then grant that license or deny it. If you denied it, it would then be available to the next person in the line.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. And I see Meg has joined as well. Welcome, Meg. We are speaking with Greg Corbo from Calvin Page to talk to us about the special legislation for all alcohol licenses and the distribution mechanism thereof, should that get approved. Any questions for Greg? Renee?
Thanks, Jack. Greg, a couple questions on what you said. So you had mentioned that we could do this if a company came to us specifically and said, hey, we'd like to open up a store here. We can actually issue, like the legislation can say that it's to that particular store.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's numerous examples of that being done that way. It does seem somewhat counterintuitive, but like I said, despite the fact that it's naming that particular store and or that particular location, it's still subject to the grant of the license by the selectmen. And if the license is not granted for any reason, then there's 2 ways that you could do it. You can either have it just become a license, or you can have it go away.
Okay. So we could do, like, we have multiple options. We can say we want it in a specific area. We could say we want it in a specific building. We could say we want a specific applicant and building, or we could say we want different types of license. Like, it's pretty much open, it seems like. I mean, it kind of seems what I would just call silly that you have to go through this process if, it would seem that the town should be able just to manage it, period. In respect to, like, one of the things that we did when we were looking at marijuana establishments, retailers specifically, we had a lot of interest in the town. And so we actually put in place like a review process. We actually had a subcommittee that did it. If we wanted to, like, one of the things that, right now we know 2 applicants, potentially one named and one not named, who have expressed interest. From the perspective of what we've done so far, the Economic Development Commission reviewed this with Mike. We talked about it, discussed supporting 2 licenses based on areas, not understanding that we had all these other options too, which I don't know if that's necessarily important in this case. But would we have an opportunity, if we knew of multiple interests, to, rather than just do the default and process the first come first serve application, could we do some sort of a review process? Could we institute that on behalf of the town to say, look, we want a process where we're reviewing all applicants, we open it up for a certain amount of time, and then whatever that process is, we follow it.
So I would suggest, if you're going to do something like that, specifying what that process is going to be in the legislation, because the procedure for issuing liquor licenses is set forth in the general laws. And even though these licenses are created by special act, they're still generally subject to that procedure. And my concern would be that if you did not specify an alternative procedure, someone who didn't make it through the screening process might say, well, I was denied my opportunity to have a hearing before the select board, and to then appeal that determination to the ADCC. So I think we could have that type of alternative procedure, but I would want to see that specified in the act.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hart, just if I finish this one thought, and just to clarify what I had said earlier, that is the one thing that I did not see in any of the special acts. So, we might be blazing a little bit of a unique trail there if you were to establish a special procedure.
So I apologize, I'm coming late to the party here. So if this is redundant, I apologize. So my one question, again, I was sort of thinking about sort of, the bigger question, and not just the type of licenses and all that other stuff, but what is the urgency at this very moment for us to be petitioning the legislature for more liquor licenses? I know the census hasn't come out yet in terms of, we most likely will acquire a new one, but I guess my sort of hesitation is, we just got so much going on right now. Why does this happen? Is there a time frame that we're supposed to be petitioning? Is there a window that we have to do this in, is my question.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I can respond to that last piece, which is no, there is not a specific time frame. It has to happen at town meeting, has to authorize the petition. So, this is a natural time to be talking about it as you get ready to prepare the annual town meeting warrant. But, if you have a fall meeting, or if you have a special meeting at some point, it can be done there as well. But as to the why are we doing this now, that's more of a policy question for the board to talk about.
Oh, great, thank you.
And I think, and Mike or Renee, correct me if I'm wrong, but this discussion started when an attorney reached out regarding interest in a location near on the Condyne development. So this started with a particular applicant and then sort of grew from there.
Correct. I was contacted by an attorney who had a client that wants to open a high-end store at the Blue Star Park. And he asked if the board would be interested in initiating legislation.
And Jack, I don't know that Meg was on the board at the time, but if you guys remember, I think it's actually been over a year. But Mike initially brought this to the select board, and we kicked it back to the Economic Development Commission to have discussion first and provide a recommendation on whether or not we thought we should move forward as a town. So we probably had, and Denise Luciano is on the call too. She's the vice chair of the EDC. I think we had 3 or 4 discussions on this. Denise, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add in respect to that or clarify if it was 2 to 3 or 3 to 4.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think we had 2 to 3 discussions and we, supported moving forward with the additional licenses. I think we talked about some specific areas in town that we thought would be good areas. And for liquor stores. Yeah.
Thanks, Denise.
Thank you, Denise.
So I think, Meg, back to your question, the timeframe is dictated primarily by the town meeting, right? Needing the approval by the town. And I'll add to that too, and Mike, please clarify, but I know we had this discussion with the marijuana retailer as well, in respect to the building of that space. And I don't know what parcel they were specifically looking at or which portion of the building. I know there were initially 2 buildings for retail, but Condyne won't start building until they have essentially a contract in hand, right? A commitment. So, this particular retailer wouldn't come in. We wouldn't even start construction, so we would see no revenue from that building until somebody supported going there. So that was one of the drivers from, when we talked about the EDC, it's twofold. It's, we have saturation in one area of town and not in the 3 others that we were looking at, and specifically, promoting economic development at that exit 10 development area. I just repeated myself, but you know what I mean.
But you're right, the developer won't start the building until he knows he's going to have tenants in the building.
So from my mind, understanding that there was an interest in a specific location that started this process, and further knowing now that we can draft the special legislation to address that one location, that might be the way that I would lean on approaching this at this point, knowing that we're very likely to get an additional license through the census update.
And Jack, I would add to that though, we initially talked about why are we going for 2 versus 1. One of the areas that we were looking at was on I'm going to screw this up, the west side of 123 West, right? And so if you think of the rapid recovery grant that we just had, it focuses in that area. We've talked about the village core in that area. I think looking at it, we have the opportunity again to say in one fell swoop that we identify that location, or that area to also have an all alcohol license that would be there, where we don't have any. I don't believe we have any at that time in that immediate area, with the exception of the corner of Worcester, right?
Yep.
But again, just for growth opportunities, the difficult part, I think, and I feel like we struggle with it a lot, is the timing of town meetings, right? And then when we've talked about, well, do we have a special town meeting? Then we talk about, well, what's the cost for it? Obviously, we've had conversations about the pandemic. Do we want to bring people out? That's certainly changing, but I would just ask the board to consider, that second area as well, because I think it does provide us with an opportunity that right now we just don't have. And Greg, do you have any thoughts on pursuing 1 versus 2 licenses and kind of the process behind it?
Yep. Process-wise, I don't think it makes much of a difference. The one thing I would say, to the extent that it would inform your discussion, is that just because you have a license doesn't mean you have to grant a license. Excuse me. So if you were to say go for 2 licenses and you already have one person who's lined up, you can give out that license. And then if it turns out that you get an additional license under census, you don't have to use that extra license or use it right away. And so despite the way I look at it is this process makes additional licenses available to you, but you still have the discretion to say, we don't think it's in the town's best interest to issue those licenses right now.
Thank you.
Brad, did you have something?
The idea of granting a single license for the Blue Star location, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not gonna reiterate what I've said in the past about a second license, but I think a second license would probably be a possibility with the census. So I don't think it's that big a deal between this town meeting and the fall town meeting if something were to come up that, I mean, I can't imagine anybody starting a business within 6 months anyways.
And the other thing I just want to
But
throw out.
I don't want to get,
Go ahead, Brad.
that's all right. Go ahead, Meg, throw.
No, I was just, again, it goes back to, you know, needs versus wants, and, you know, hey, I want a nice liquor store in town, but, you know, has any one town person come up to me and say, we really need this? No, I just feel timing-wise, and perception-wise, we just have so much on our plates, there's so much going on right now. I don't see why why we want to bring this up at a town meeting as something that, you know, we truly need in our town at this juncture when we have 20 plus licenses. You know, that's just my personal opinion. So again, and what Brad was saying, like, I don't see why this couldn't wait till the fall meeting when we're not, you know, we don't have 80 other thousand things that are pressing. This to me just seems like it would just be pushed under the rug, or it also just gives a bad impression that I don't know, just to me personally, and trust me, I'm the biggest wine drinker on this call right now, so I'm not opposed.
I guess, Meg, the only thing is we have a budget that, you know, was initially presented to us in deficit. We've cut back quite a bit, and, you know, specifically if we're thinking about exit 10, this potentially could start a building and can bring revenue in just from permits alone, right? And that's something that we could realize. It's not something that's a year out. You know, the sooner we do it, the sooner we continue development there, and it becomes something that attracts people to the town.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mike.
I know I see Lucia's on, so I think the indications from what Lucia has said is, I don't see us having an increase in population to get another license. All indications are that the population's actually gone down. And Lucia can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I know, I'm sorry, I don't have a video on my thing right now. I can't see what everyone's doing, but this is Denise. Could I speak for 1 second? Yeah, I just wanted to echo the same. I would rather have 2 licenses and hold on to one and wait and decide if we want to use it, rather than going through the process twice. And you know, regarding needs versus wants, I think what we do need is income in the town, right? Tax revenue. I think there's no question about that. So I think that the reason why we thought this was a good idea is, you know, obviously for the economic development piece of it, right? We do have some areas where we could benefit from some liquor stores that would be hopefully of a caliber that would keep people in town for buying it versus going, you know, across the town to Mansfield to purchase things, or other neighboring towns to get things that they can't get here.
All right, thank you, Denise. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Lucia, I saw you unmute and pop up quick.
Yep, good evening, Mr. Chair. Our population had decreased by a couple of thousand, and that is just based on the town census that we received from last year. Now, I don't know, I can get a count for you because of the presidential election, they all come out and register to vote, so that's increased the amount. So the federal census, I think, is going to have a more accurate than what we have in our system, but there was a couple thousand resident decrease before the presidential election.
Thank you.
Jack, point of clarification, Mike, liquor licenses, I know Meg mentioned 20, but I believe right now we have 9 and 4 of those are all alcohol, is that correct? The other are just package?
I'm going to leave that up to the expert, Jennifer.
I'm double checking right now.
I know I have it in EDC materials, but it would take me time to find it.
I just need 1 minute.
Sure.
Thanks, Jim.
We'll count for you, Jen, just so you feel like you're not under pressure.
I was gonna say no pressure.
Yeah, I do recall it somewhere in that 9 or 10 range. And I think it was, yeah.
I guess I'm thinking the 20,000 population, and we got a percentage of that.
I think is it 5 all alcohol? Because we had 4 based on population and 1 extra.
I think that tracks.
Give Jen time.
Very well, I'll kill some time. So on the restaurant front, that's all separate, right? Those liquor licenses are totally separate?
That's right. So you have you essentially have 4 different quotas. You have all alcohol restaurant, beer and wine restaurant, all alcohol carry out or package store, and beer and wine package store. So they each have their own quota.
I am showing we have 4 retail package all alcohol and 5 retail package wine and malt.
Great. Jen has spoken, so let it be written. So 4 and 5, okay. And
$10 to whoever can name them all.
oh,
I could do it.
So you don't count, you're looking at it. Good try.
Malt liquors.
I was kidding, Peter.
Litter. Put us on, mass dance.
all right. Well, sorry, Peter, had to mute you. Just try to save Renee $10 because you absolutely hit them all. I have no doubt.
I know.
Okay, so we're clear on the number of licenses we have. And Renee, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we do get 1 additional license, that would trigger the availability of another retail marijuana license?
I actually think I think I said 1 last time, Jack, but I believe it's 2, right? Because we're at 9 right now and you have to round up and it's 20%. That's our bylaw is 20%. So we would need 2. If it takes us to 11, then we go to 12. And at that point, our 20% would change. And 20% is the state minimum that you have to have.
Right, I recall that.
And Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know. I believe that's the case.
Yes, you are correct. You cannot go below that 20% number unless you go to a ballot question.
Yeah. All right, any other questions for Greg? Seeing none, thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate it. That was great information.
Great. Yeah, so, once you make your decision, if you decide to go forward with an article, let me know what it is and I'll help you put it together so that you can achieve what it is that you want to achieve here.
Actually, before you go, I do have one question about the citing the location in the legislation. Is that typically a specific, call it address, or is it a zone on a map or a range?
So I've seen both. So I've seen it, as I said, like some towns are now enacting these downtown business districts. So I've seen it, 1 additional license to be used in the downtown business district. But likewise, I've also seen it specific. I think you said the new plaza that's coming in is called Blue Ribbon. And so you can specify to be used in the Blue Ribbon shopping plaza.
I think you're thinking of Paps there, Greg.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's Blue Star.
Blue Star. Okay.
They all got booze on the mind tonight.
I guess so.
Do they even sell that beer anymore?
Oh, it's very popular.
Oh, is it? as Jack holds his cup up like he's drinking it.
That's
Well, you
Mike's
guys
shot.
have a college, so I would imagine a beer like that would be pretty popular there.
I think it became very popular with the hipster crowd
Yeah.
not too long ago. All right. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. And we'll certainly be in touch over time. All right. So now I believe.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg, you too, thank you.
In order
Thank
to maintain our timelines for town meeting, we either need to vote today or next Tuesday, right? That's my understanding.
I don't think you have to vote today. You know, there is a draft article. After what you heard from Greg tonight, there may be some things you want to change on that. I'll send you the article.
Okay.
And think about it, and we can put it on the next agenda. It's up to you, obviously.
So I'd like to hear from the board on how or if we would like to sort of tweak that article based on what we've heard this evening. I'm curious to see where Brad, Meg, you guys have ended up. Renee's position probably is still where it was.
Mine is, it's all about the Benjamin. Just kidding, I want
Like I mentioned before, I would probably support the single license that seems like we have a need for it at the Blue Star. But other than that, I'm not apt to support anything.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. Meg, what do you think? 1, 2, none?
Again, I just don't feel comfortable even entertaining it right now, but that's, you know, just personal. I can't, yes, revenue could come to town, but we could do, you know, we could have lots of different great, you know, we could have tattoo parlors and bring in revenue. We could have, you know, lots of other things. I just, there's so much attention on sort of, you know, town planning and really thinking about, you know, what we want to look like in our future. And I just think, like, let's not just do it piecemeal. And I'm not saying wait 10 years. I'm saying, can we wait till next town meeting? Well, this meeting, we have so much on the agenda. I don't know. Again, that's just my opinion. So I don't support it right now.
So, and Renee, you're still team 2.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a little different for me because we've been discussing it for quite some time, right? So we took a good hard look at where we thought we could promote growth. You know, like I said, specifically avoiding areas that we thought were already oversaturated. Understanding too, like what sort of draw we would have from it. So obviously at exit 10, you know, people coming right off the highway, we have the benefit of the Cape. And then on the other side of town, right, pulling from the Attleboro area. So, and both of those areas are, you know, we've talked about it, and we talked about it last night on the meeting with Paul, in respect to the new grant that we have, because we are specifically looking at, you know, the 123 West area. Like, we know that area was hit hard. So in conjunction with how do we help the current businesses recover from that, it's also how do we promote additional growth, right? Like, somebody comes in to you know, get some specialty wine or liquor, and then, hey, I'm going to stop by, grab a pizza too, right? You know, it's very similar to our conversations that we had on the retail establishments and where we felt the best locations were to also help other businesses, like existing businesses. So, you know, I'm definitely in favor of the exit 10 because I think, you know, and I don't know if we would want Mike to talk to it, but the revenue that we generate just from getting new building there, right? Versus right now, it's just a piece of land. So there's no property tax, there are no permit fees, there's nothing else there, versus having this growth. And then again, like I said, I mean, our businesses in town were pretty hard hit, right? And so it's great that Paul got this grant, and, you know, we're going to work to figure out how can we help them. And I just think that this is a piece of it. So I don't think it's something where, you know, we don't have any tattoo parlors. I really hadn't thought of a tattoo parlor. Out of all these things, like...
Please don't think of a tattoo parlor,
no,
Renee.
No, don't worry, I won't. It's funny because, you know, everybody says I'm the biggest pot proponent, but I have never even, had any sort of marijuana. And then same thing with the tattoo. I'm like, well, I haven't had a tattoo either. Could I, support it? But I think that this is a little different. And, it's like the theme that we've been hearing is everybody goes somewhere else outside of town for it. So, Meg, when you were talking need versus want, I don't know that we could say we need anything. I mean, the only absolute need is we need income for the town. And if it's a matter of, you're going to get in your car and go across town and give them money versus get in your car and, give somebody money here and then potentially pass Mac and Waltz or, Downtown Pizza or whatever and also give them money, like I just think it's a benefit for us overall. And then when I think of that area, 123, too, I mean, even both, right? Like the Condyne area it's different. Like it has the sidewalks, it has, like I envision as people start to get out and we get retail there, and then potentially even across the street, right? There are opportunities for more people to walk, and I just think it promotes, I don't want to say a lot of goodness because that sounds completely silly, but it promotes other things. So, but the first is it's the growth, right? It's really growth. It's helping the companies that we have here and giving our townspeople an opportunity to stay in town to do their business.
Thank you all. So Mike, I think what would be helpful, if you can draft up an alternate version that provides for a single license at the Blue Star property, and we can debate the two at our next meeting. And when ultimately does this decision need to be made in order to have it solidified for the warrant?
Well, technically the warrant doesn't have to be posted final with recommendations until 7 days before the town meeting. So we have time.
Okay. All right.
Remember, we still have, right, we need FinCom to review and vote as well. So, and maybe it's, I don't know what you guys would think about entertaining the discussion with them too, before, like just to have additional information.
Okay. Maybe we can add that to one of our upcoming joint meetings, Mike.
Maybe not this Monday, obviously, but the following Monday, we can put that on there.
Okay. I think that would be good. That'll inform us in our further discussion. All right. Thank you for that robust discussion. We'll now welcome Michael back from Exile Island. Welcome, Michael. Moving on to reviewing and discussing the FY22 budget. Tonight we have animal control, selectman, and town manager.
All right. First of all, thanks for agreeing to go to the finance committee meetings coming up. It'll make it easier. The schools only have to present once, and then the regional schools once. And I'll talk with the planning director and see when we can get together with the selectmen and the finance committee on any of those planning articles. So those just have to be presented once too. I think all we have left is water and sewer, and Frank said he could attend your next meeting next Thursday, and these three budgets here. So the first one, let me put it up.
I'll share it, Mike, so I can zoom around. Let me find the right thing. 311. Here we go. All right.
Okay.
Good.
So this budget is animal control, and the budget is for the animal control officer and his assistant. And Brian has been in service here for 21 years now. And so.
With my 3 dogs, Mike, I have I've had run-ins with Brian on a regular basis. I have 3 misbehaved dogs.
Don't worry, Jennifer, I'm not going to say anything. Brian, this year, the steel workers, they adjusted salaries on a few positions that were out of line, and he did receive an adjustment this year in his salary. And also he received an increase of $50 in his longevity and $250 in his incentive. He gets incentive, two things for maintaining his carry permit, and also a few years ago, the state started requiring annual training for animal control officers. In the past, they didn't have any training at all, and but now they have to be certified each year, and Brian has to attend training on that. And down below, his expenses, charges and expenditures he's proposing going from $13,728 to $14,030.
Any questions on this one?
Mike, this is a full-time position?
It's a full-time position, yep, and he does have one part-time assistant.
Oh my God, I don't like that one line item.
The vehicles, where's the?
Disposable of animals. Well, he doesn't use much, so that's good. He hasn't disposed of anyone.
Vehicles fall under capital, Mike?
Say that again, Michael.
Does his vehicles fall under capital?
Actually, we purchased a vehicle for him a year or two ago using the dog fund. Figuring that is a suitable purpose for the revenue that's raised from dog licenses, and that's what paid for his van.
Is there anything in this budget that he would, did you ask him the $1 million question? Is there something that he's missing that he would like to see on the budget, but he knows that he just wouldn't put it on there?
Brian is he's a very satisfied person. He doesn't ask for much, and he really feels that the budget's suitable.
And does this position fall under you or the chief?
Me.
It does, okay.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, Jack, I have a question. It's kind of unrelated to the budget, but it could impact the budget. Do we do any sort of like a donation or like funding external from the budget to support the animal shelter?
He does get some limited donations. He'll ask for things. So he does get some. I can't tell you how much, but I do know that people do.
When my father-in-law passed away, he was a big cat person, and he actually, that we requested in the donations that donations be made to the animal shelter and Jordan's Furniture, TJ Maxx. So they got a big influx of some dollars, and we're actually running a golf tournament this spring to raise more money, and it's all going to go to the shelter. So hopefully that'll help offset any costs that they have.
That's great. Thanks, Meg.
All right, any good on this one? I think just as a general question, Mike, how far away are you from providing your recommendations against these?
So I expect to have the school budget tomorrow. So I'll be working next week on doing all my recommendations. So hopefully have them all done next week.
All right.
Hey, Mike.
Yep.
Again, it's somewhat unrelated. When Brian has the same calls over and over again, and Meg, I'm not thinking of you, but now I'm thinking of you. Do we have a chargeback or any sort of a payment schedule? I just remember seeing these very beautiful 2 white dogs and very dirty. on like Norton Neighbors or something that apparently get out all the time.
Um,
I didn't know, like, do we have a program like that or any sort of like awareness where, you know, we can help homeowners to understand how to secure their dogs? And I admit too, I have a 40-pound dog that can get through like an inch under my fence when she sees something that she wants. She usually comes back and sits and looks at the fence like, hey, you gonna let me back in? But there'll be times we have
Renee,
to
we
scour
have
the neighborhood.
We have a 7-foot fence that our dog jumps, and we have an electric fence within the fence that she doesn't care about. So sort of at a loss.
Yeah, I've had that conversation with the vet too.
I will check with Brian on that.
I just didn't know. I mean, like, I think about it, and I know there are some people who just, you know, may not know what options there are, you know, or don't think about it.
Yeah, and I will say Brian does a good job because the worst thing in the world is for select boards to have dog hearings. It's painful. And we have not had, I know, I shouldn't have said that.
I was thinking the same thing.
Since I started in Norton, so he does a great job mediating neighbor disputes and solving issues.
But you know what would be good, because his assistant was the one the last time my dog broke out, or actually one of the other dogs broke out, was that I wasn't even aware of the fence when we had this like incredible windstorm. And she was telling me like, oh my God, you can't even believe how many dogs got out in the last, 24 hours. So I actually now have a hook lock on our fence, because that'll prevent it when the wind gets out of control. So little things like that, but that was very helpful when she came by to tell me that. Like, I would never even have guessed that that's, so anyway. Maybe they could do more of like, when they see all the dog licenses, maybe if time allows, I don't know, just to do a little informational pamphlet or something.
Yeah. Or maybe again, we can have a party there, right? If we get another alcohol license, we can have a demo or tasting right outside the animal shelter, and we can get tips. What do you call it? It can't be tips and drink, but tips and dogs?
Tips and sips.
Biscuits.
Tips and sips.
Tips and sips, that's good. See, we're already doing it. It's awareness.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Michael.
Mike, when you do your, just to follow up on Jack's question, when you do your what your asks are, or your modifications, will we see what the ask was versus the modification?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just fill in that next call.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Right. Thank you, Mike. So let's see what's up.
Selectmen.
That is so weird how it's just scrolling across my screen.
That's me.
No, I know. I know, too. It's just because you had to rotate it, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. It's just, usually you see the scroll up and down, so.
Yeah, I don't know why as soon as I went to full screen, it started going side to side. So it's blowing my mind a little bit too. So, all right. Select board.
All right, select board. It's the salary of the one position. And then with the expenses, the only slight increase in expenses is office supplies.
What's that due to, Mike? Like printing or something else?
No, we actually have a printing line item. That's just supplies for in the office. Paper, ink, whatever we use for office supplies.
Michael, you gonna ask your $1 million question?
I will. Hold on one second. The problem is Jack, my eyes are so bad. I'm looking at a printout here and I can't make through some of these numbers, the 3s and the 5s.
Look at your screen. Does that help? It's actually still pretty grainy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So that's department request is that 63.9
It looks like, yeah.
or is it 83.9?
63.9.
Thank you. That's I was gonna say. Thank you. Appreciate that. No, it's Mike. Is there anything? Jen has done a great job. Obviously, we're pretty close to what she does. She's done a great job with the permitting, a lot of eyes. Is there something that and Jen's on here? Is there something that she sees in her job that she thinks that she could help the town, the select board, yourself, that isn't reflected on this?
I don't know if Jen wants to comment on that.
And getting rid of me is not an option yet. That's not.
Jen has done a great job in modernizing the department, I would say, and her paralegal background has helped us. She was actually working on a purchase and sale agreement today. And so I appreciate everything that she's done.
There isn't anything particular that's top of mind or anything, right?
Nope. Other than maybe part-time wages to get someone else to do minutes at the long meetings, but.
Okay.
I think that can be covered by Norton Media and Zoom recording.
All right, thanks.
Cool. Moving on. Here we go. On to town manager.
Okay, so there's two positions here. Myself and the assistant to the town manager. And for expenses, the major obviously thing is the contracted services, $50,000. And what that is to have money there to contract out if department heads are working on a grant that they need assistance with, to hire a consultant to work with them on a grant, and also money to hire an HR professional to work with the town.
I'm sorry, Mike, that falls where, the HR?
Under contracted services. So we can contract with an HR person and if needed with a grant person.
Mike, let me ask you this. Is it possible, I understand you want you're putting 2 in one air and this. Is it possible possibly break that out
Sure.
from this as a completely separate item? It's one of the things that I think I want to ask the select board if they would consider. One of the things that we talk about direction and provision, and this is one of the things that I think should come across to the finance committee as very urgent. This is one of those things that we've kicked down the road. The HR person, I don't think it's fair to you, Mike. I don't think it's fair for employees. They need a $60 million company would not have an HR person. That was a lot of negatives there. We'd absolutely have an HR person. And I think this is, and I understand the financial concerns, but I think as we get bigger as a town, as we get, I think it's really crucial. And I think it's something that we need to set as a direction for the town.
So I could break that out, contracted services, HR professional, and contracted services, grant assistance.
And I agree, Michael. I think having an HR person available needs to be a major priority for the town.
So, and we talked about this multiple times, and I imagine, Mike, that's why we're seeing it on the budget, because I thought we actually voted last year to make sure we had an HR director on here, and that we had, I thought we said 35,000 for a grant, like you did some research on that. Was it 35 or 25? So I'm just concerned about that number there, because to me, for both of those, it seems low.
Agreed.
I'll look at that. Yeah, I'll look at that.
Yeah, and again, going back to conversation around the grant writing specifically, I think at the time we were talking about like an $800,000 grant, right, that we had an opportunity for, but weren't sure if we could make it because we didn't have the staff to do it. So, if we can, have some economies of scale here for a position to write grants for us and take some of that off of the different department heads, like I see it paying for itself, twofold, and then freeing them up to actually do what they should be doing. But I'll give kudos to the groups I know, Jen Carlino and Paul and, many others. I think Lucia got one too, and Sean, they're certainly out there and they're doing it, but to have some support in doing that across the board, whether it's in the municipality or the schools, I think we should invest in that.
And I guess there's two approaches in this. I mean, we obviously are taking a lump sum consultant approach for grants. I'm in the belief that it should fall into the individual departments, kind of almost break it up, and then we might move it around if necessary. And I don't even know, I know how you do that in regular business. I'm not sure how you do that in municipal financing. But it allows, it almost makes it almost like a priority. Every department should be looking for grants and or applying some kind of professional to use that money to get grants of some sort. I sometimes feel like if it's lumped in one place, out of sight, out of mind, I'd like to go for the grant, but I just don't have the money or the abilities to write the grants. So,
well, the problem, if you break it out into departments, a grant might become available that's really beneficial, and it might take a lot of work, and it might be in another department. And then if you don't have enough money in that department to hire the grant writer, you'd have to wait until you go to town meeting to transfer money into there, and then we'd lose it. So at least this keeps it, so if someone comes forward and they say that, I've got this opportunity, but I really could use some help, then we could work with the grant writers. Like when it was environmental stuff, we had CEC assist us.
So let me ask a question. This is again just my naivete. You can move monies within each account. So 123 is town manager. You can move monies within those different line items, or no, you can't even do that. You need a town approval to do that.
No, the way it used to be that way, and then we changed it. So when the budgets are voted, it's voted salaries and total expenses. So we can move money around in the expense.
On the expense side, you can move money around on the expense side, just not the salary side.
We can't move money from salaries to expense or expense to salaries. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Can you move it from, say, 123, account 123 can you move it from 123 to 122?
No.
That it has to stay within each budget group.
Correct. Yeah.
Mike, is there anyone here that, I'm sorry, Renee?
No, I clicked on something and you guys went somewhere else on my screen, sorry.
Mike, is there, what's your wish list? What's not on here that you'd say,
Well, I don't know if it would be in here in the long run, but my wish list is your wish list. Definitely at some point, if we get a new town hall and we have the space, I definitely would like to have an full-time HR person. As far as grants, I don't think you need a grant writer. No municipalities have grant writers on staff just because grants are so far and few between and so hard to get. It's just not worth keeping someone on staff, and that's why consultants are generally used for grants. But definitely, at some point, the town definitely needs a full-time HR person.
So let me ask you this. I know that space is a concern right now.
Mhm.
What would your target be right now? So right now you budget 50,000. I think that number, to Renee's point, is ridiculously low.
Mhm.
I don't think I said ridiculously.
I was about to say ridiculous. I was about to take it back. It came out of my mouth. That's not the right word.
You called it a sound, yeah.
What's your target salary for your beginning HR person?
I don't know, Mike, to be honest with you, but I would think you're gonna be up in the $100,000 range, or between, I don't have any idea, but I imagine you're gonna be up, above 80 to 100, somewhere in that range, but I'm not sure.
And
So
that's
how do
for the position, Michael, is that what you're asking for? Right, for us to have the position versus using a vendor?
Right.
Okay, I just want to clarify what exactly the question
And
was.
this year, you're thinking of using a vendor. For next year, you're thinking about using a vendor, like an HR, to use a company called HR Solutions, and then we have HR person.
Yeah.
Okay. I think.
And really would like to have them work on a policy manual. I think would be very helpful. Employee policy manual.
Yeah, I think it's important that I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, may work.
Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
I think it's important that we express, I like with the action plan of maybe outsourcing it right now and finding an agency that we can hire contractually for fiscal year 22. But I think right now we need to start telling the finance committee, this goal here, you're going to see this line item increase the next year, because our goal here is to hire a full-time person.
Right. Yep.
I don't want to see 20. I mean, I know budgets have to be cut. I get it, but this is one of those things that I'm shocked we haven't gotten in trouble by not having a representative.
No, but that's a good point you just made to emphasize that. Look at in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, Jack. Is that something is that something that we should? We're going to be meeting the finance committee, and the finance committee is, and I've heard this from several members saying that they really would love to see a direction from us. Doesn't mean they're going to follow it, but what the priorities are. It's something that after we see the reviews on this, we're writing a letter or a memo to the finance committee saying we've reviewed all the budgets. These are some of the high points that we think are a priority for the town.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's perfectly appropriate.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, I think with many of these things, it comes down to the almighty dollar. Right? I'm sure, it's at the root of the question that you're asking everybody. Like, what does good look like for your department? And everything involves additional money, whether it's staff, program support, and there's just not enough of it to go around. So as much as I agree, I think it would be phenomenal to try to jump right into an HR director this year. I think Mike's spot on with that around low six figure range for an HR professional for, call it a company this size, right? That's a lot of risk. There's a lot of liability. I absolutely think it's a worthy investment. But when you look across all these budgets and you see, increase after increase after increase, and I'm sure the vast majority of them are completely valid and justifiable and well-deserved. Where do you cut to get that position, or any position for that matter? Sort of the age-old dilemma we have here.
Well, it's again, we need to increase our revenue, right? So I'll go back to the economic development. I mean, if we can't add to our budget, then we can just kiss these things goodbye, and we have to deal with what we have.
It's, what's the schools doing for an HR individual? Do they have an HR individual?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
We'll
I
find
think
out at
that's-
that meeting though, won't we?
Next Monday.
Yeah, I think it's one of the questions, and is that individual utilized to the fullest? And is there some synergies there that the town might be able to partner with the schools in regarding their HR individual?
Well, you're making my ears tingle, Mike.
Jack, I pulled that word out for you, Jack.
Good. I mean, this is stuff that at least Renee and I have talked about since literally the first day that we joined, is trying to find these areas where you can bundle services, like a town school IT group, right? That supports each other. I think there's a lot of opportunities for that, and just expand the knowledge base and the capabilities of what we have. Because I think there's expertise on both sides that can be leveraged to good effect. We need everyone to keep talking.
Agreed.
And Mike, when we look at the benefits line, the item that we were talking about, is that for municipal and school employees? Is that the entire town?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like we don't have areas where, our human capital isn't combined now. So to the point, Michael raised, like if we have human resources available now through the schools, why wouldn't we look to leverage that across town? And maybe instead of adding a director at six-figure, we add some sort of an assistant at half, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Mike, with that being said, I mean, I do, you're not trained in HR, and hats off to you, because obviously you probably have been dealing with some HR issues on your own. So I will, I don't know if it's good or bad that you've been dealing with the HR issues, but it obviously is I think it's something that needs to be addressed, and I recognize that you've been dealing with it. So.
I think it plays into mitigating risk to the town, right? And I think that lines up nicely, not anything against Mike, but you see where a lot of exposure is right now is in the human resource realm. So having a professional to deal with that and create a buffer, and again, it's well worth the investment.
And it's hard to quantify it, but it also quite possibly reduces your legal budget, because issues now that we're concerned about that could be handled by an HR person, we may reach out and ask counsel about. Right. A lot of the labor issues. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I think, Mike, even thinking of the benefits, right? Like you right now are doing reviews on, well, what benefit packages are good for the town, right? That's not your area of expertise versus somebody who is knowledgeable in HR, and they can say, well, this is what I've seen, and this is where we can have some cost savings or provide additional benefits. Like those are things, that like you should advise on, but have somebody there to say, hey, Mike, like this is kind of how it works. Like this is how we can have better benefits or less, I almost said less pay, that was wrong, but like less costs, for the employees and the town. So I think there are many, many different things that can help. And, I think of like diversity too, right? Diversity, like how are we from the town, like really focusing on that and making sure that there's some, sensitivity trainings and things like that. So I think it's a huge win. I will go back to though, just in general, because we were talking about priorities, we've talked about this a lot, and I think something that we probably need to further discuss before meeting with planning board is, like still looking at, like we understand we have a budget and revenue that is by far less than what we thought it was going to be, but still seeing for some of the bigger salaries like 4.5%, 5% increases. And I've said this before, like you drop those down, you look at especially some of the lower paid employees, and we focus on keeping the staff that we have, and not on potentially exceeding what we have for resources by, in a pandemic, giving such high raises. I think we need to be conscious about that and really focused on, it's not a great message to people, but I'd rather say, look, you're going to get 1.5% less or 1% less this year, but we're comfortable that because we're doing this, we're not going to have to lay people off.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, that's what every company's doing right now, and everyone's sort of holding towing the line. So we have to be aware of the financial circumstances.
Mike, what do you do what do you do for your self-improvement with seminars and conferences? Are you doing anything to kind of advance your experience at all?
Yeah, I do.
Typically do.
I do updates on procurement for my my certification as the procurement official, and obviously the MMA programs that they offer online now. So.
And is Jen or is Michelle officially, I mean, and I don't want to call them administrators, are they your administrators? Who is your administrator?
Well, obviously, I work very closely with both of them. So Michelle does a ton of work with the budget, the warrant, human resources, and then Jen obviously is all the work with the licenses and paying the bills, and so.
And Michelle's official title is Assistant to Town Manager?
Yep.
And Jen's is Office Administrator, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that assistant to, is that a different, I mean, obviously assistant town manager is quite different than assistant to. Is that, I mean, is she doing the typical work of assistant town manager, or what is the, I don't know this, and maybe Brad, you can maybe give some guidance on this. Is that a role that actually exists in most towns like our size? There's an assistant town manager, or is there an ops manager, or what's typically?
Yeah, most towns, Michelle is acting more or less as an assistant town manager with all the functions that she does are similar to what an assistant town manager does. A lot of towns have finance directors in addition to an accountant and a treasurer, so. I always love that when I say to some of the town managers, said, you have a finance director, you have an HR person, you have.
Yeah. So Mike, as we're going through the budget, is there and I know, like I said, in the private sector that I worked in, I always used to say that it's the salary plus 20% fringe. Have you actually gone through each job, each position in the town and said, okay, it's salary plus the 20? Is there a number? Is it 30% fringe of the salary? Is there a number typically that goes this with that includes vacation time, health benefits, all that stuff? Is that, or is it vary so greatly that you can't even do that?
I haven't done that. It varies by union, obviously, and how many years people have in service. But obviously the big thing is that throws anything like that out of whack is if someone's on the family health plan, there's $19,000 right there. So.
Yeah, no, I know, and I get that, but there's a number, because I think one of the things that it's been overwhelming to me in this position is really because of all the different contracts and the stipends and all the, in certain positions, uniforms and this, longevity, all those things. When you look at the salary, right, people are saying, well, we're one of the lowest salaries, but I don't think it's really capturing, and granted other towns off that too, but I feel like we're missing a lot of for me, really understanding what, a position is in town, what the real comp package is. Mm-hmm. Seems to be spread out, all that. And correct, Jack, Renee, have you guys had that problem? Meg, Brad? I'm just like, like if someone said, you know, and I'm gonna pick on Lucia here just because I just town clerk is this, and these are I couldn't even tell you right now off the top of my head what other things there are there. Not that there are or there aren't, I'm not looking for that answer, but yeah, I see that it's hard to measure that through all the positions. Is that accurate? Am I the only one that's having that trouble?
I think that's a good point. It's hard to see the true impact, because that other chunk of the total compensation package is buried elsewhere.
Yeah, it's almost like I really want to see, not even by individual, just by position, even if it's an average of it. And so we know, like, I'd love to see one spreadsheet that says, you know, okay, the police officer's contract, the patrolman's contract on average is this, and these are the average of benefits. And then we can probably figure out just the idea where we are and benchmark.
Yeah, we have a lot of that I can share with you. You know, longevity, vacation. We do have information like that I can share with you as we update it with the new contracts.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we start seeing that, and if we do that by position and put it on one spreadsheet, the kind of the whole town or so forth by average and fringe benefits, when we start looking at contracts for, you know, if the charter happens or new select board members come in the future, I think that spreadsheet becomes like almost a living document going forward as we're looking at these contracts. Because I'm looking at these contracts and I have no base. You know, and shame on me. Maybe I should have dug in there and dug out all the old contracts, created a spreadsheet and all that stuff, but I just didn't have the bandwidth.
Yeah, if I may, going back to when I first started with the school committee, it was the same thing, trying to figure out steps, and like they get points for, you know, like a master's plus, and and that's on top of steps, and it was always crazy. It would have been nice to just have a spreadsheet on what an average person's total salary and compensation was. So that to me is what the job is worth.
Right.
But to have them split out, it would be nice. But it's overwhelming to try to, you can't just, it's not a snapshot type thing. And you can't figure it out in your head. It would probably be nice to see it in black and white, just to get an idea of what you're actually talking about.
Right. And I think when we talk about those things and bring those salary ranges, Brad, to town meeting, I feel, in part of me, honestly, a little disingenuous because we're showing salaries and they're voting on the salaries, but they're not seeing all the other stuff that is in a contract or something like that where I think sometimes it could be missed and so forth.
Possibly. I don't really
possibly. I'm not saying it's wrong, and just possibly.
No, I'm just saying that I wasn't even going to say that it was wrong. I'm just for kind of clarifying, like when you get to town meeting, you're more voting on a total budget and, you know, like where the money's going. The only thing that you probably don't, like, because my brother was a police officer, we'll just say police, you don't really get an idea of what it costs for, you know, police in compensation and salary, is because not the insurance is in a totally different line item, and you don't have a clue, you know, how many police officers are getting family plans, or how many, you haven't got a clue what kind of compensation you're paying that way. But you do get an idea of like the salary, because the salary lines, you know, what the compensation is on that idea. Because you have to, everything they're getting in income is in there in different line items. But something like, just like the insurance is totally outside of every department. And to me, I mean, that's almost a $20,000 hit per person possibly.
Right, and that's a huge, that would be a huge thing. I mean, we may say, and again, I'm just picking on someone, this is not factual, but it may be with their salary, patrolman might be salaries at a certain level with the contract they have, but when you add everything in, that the fringe might be 30%, 40% of, on an average of the salary. That's a good measure of where we are, you know, and if we can do that, if we can figure out with each position, just an average of what the fringe might look like, I think it gives us an understanding of what the real impact of that individual is to the town and so forth. So we as a group, collectively as a group, when we're told to Renee's point, if we have to lay people off or toe the line or raises, it really kind of says, well, this is what the real impact is and so forth. Okay, sorry to go on that rant, guys.
No, good discussion. All right, were there any other questions on the town manager category?
Jack, just one, where's the line item for our salary?
You gotta assume
It's all zeros, right?
You have to go back about 24 annual reports for that.
Right.
Was it really collect? Is the stipend that long?
There were stipends at one time.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a $3,000 stipend.
There were stipends, yeah, but what happened was the townspeople found out that by paying a selectman a stipend, it made them eligible for town health insurance. And that's when the stipends were eliminated.
Understood.
I'm not gonna put it forth while I'm on the board, but I'll help everyone when I'm not on the board, that maybe there should be something a non-stipend, but I don't know, the amount of work that I've seen you guys all put into this and my short stint here, like, I don't know, maybe property tax for the year or for the term.
It's funny that, yeah, I was just thinking, if I bill out, I won't even say a contractor rate, right? But I'll just say my rate at work. If I billed that out, like it would be like another full-time job. I mean, close to it for the amount of time. Now, granted, that includes EDC, but I don't know that anyone realizes, like for FinCom. So I mean, the school committee this year got hammered with the pandemic, right? And they were having meetings all the time. But I don't know that anyone conceptually thinks about the amount of time that you spend. It's definitely not just the meetings.
Or maybe
I mean, there's a lot.
That's why there's so few volunteers lately.
Maybe what, Jeff?
Maybe they do know, and that's why there's so few
right.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that the select board get free parking at town hall.
Jack, did you zoom in to show our budget, our line item?
I did.
Is that what we're looking at?
Yep, whole lot of zeros. No, we do it for love, guys, don't we? That's
something like that.
I don't know about you. I love the town. All right, with that schmaltz out of the way, thank you, Mike, for presenting the budgets.
Okay.
Our next and final item for this evening is looking at the capital plan.
Yep. So with the capital budget, on the left is the department requests, then my recommendation and the capital improvements committee recommendation. As we do a lot of times, when we receive more requests than we can fund, obviously, and we put some stuff off and try and fund it in the fall once the free cash is certified. So the first item is $18,250, and that's to replace the Aerohive Hive Manager wireless access points. There's 10 of them, and that was installed in 2011, so it's at end of life.
Where are these installed, Mike?
This is the wireless for town hall, police station, fire department.
So why would we replace why would we replace potentially town hall wireless access points if we're looking to move it? I mean, I get where we might be there a couple of years, but.
We will look at that if the articles pass, and I know there's some, another item in here that I'll mention that to you too. There's another item in here that capital wanted to put in and realizing that it may or may not happen, but if it doesn't happen, the money just stays.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, it can't be used for anything else.
Sure, and for technology, is this end of life or end of support? Right, like if something breaks, can we still get it fixed? Because they're two different things.
Yeah, as Charlene said, really, they're getting near the end of the life because they're going to be approaching 11 years old by the end of the 2022.
I'm not familiar with this particular brand, but 11-year-old routers would make me nervous too, or access points.
Oh, what makes you nervous about it, Jeff?
I don't know if you're messing with.
It makes a noise.
You've got mail. No, I think when you look at 2011, I worry about what wireless standard they're on, the throughput that they are able to do, and then most importantly is security. You know,
well, right, and that's why I asked about end of support versus end of life.
And
right.
I know that 2 of them have already overheated, so, and they shut off when they overheated.
Okay. Yeah, I think $1,800 per access point seems high, but I don't know.
1,800?
Yeah, what did I say?
You said 1,800.
Yeah, 1,800.
That's what it is.
10 points.
10
One of them
points.
for 18.
Oh, 10, I gotcha.
Yep.
18,000, but 1,800 a piece, gotcha.
Okay.
And the next item is from conservation, work that Jennifer has to do at Camp Edith 3 to replace some rotted wood in the bunkhouse there. And then 14,400 is hazardous tree and forestry. There's come in to clear out some of the pathways and some of the conservation areas. And Jennifer does anticipate grant money for both of these, hopefully. So that would be reduced by any grant money that Jennifer does receive.
How much potential reduction, Mike, for these?
I believe that the partnership grant for hazardous tree, she was looking at $9,000. So that would reduce that by that. And I'm not sure of the other one.
So point of clarification, Mike, if Jen's successful in getting, say, a $9,000 grant for that,
yep,
the approved value doesn't increase, right? It's just 9,000 less.
Right, exactly. And that money would remain in the capital fund.
Okay.
And Mike, I'm sorry, this was all, these are the recommendations from the capital
Yes.
group? Okay.
Yep, the column on the right is capital.
Okay, it just wasn't showing. I was trying to look through
Yep.
my areas, so I apologize. I didn't catch it in the beginning.
Yeah, I was the representative from the selectmen on the capital committee, and the capital committee went along with the town manager's suggestions after hearing from all the departments.
But what's the item that wasn't funded? Was it just not requested? No, it wasn't requested.
No, it was, the 35,000 was requested. We're just gonna wait until the fall on that and see if we need it. You know, there was equipment that has been purchased through the CARES fund that people can use. So we'll wait and see in the fall if get a better understanding on what equipment we actually need.
All right, so these are more end user devices, not servers or?
Right, exactly. Yep. Printers, computers.
Okay, thank you.
The police department, 3 line cruisers. The committee funded 2, and we'll look at possibly a 3rd in the fall. The police station remodel, 10,000. Brian didn't need that because money had been appropriated previously, and due to COVID, they haven't really been able to do that work, so he has that money. The next item, this came up, Train was also at Capitol, at the last Capitol meeting presenting, and they have not done the audit of the town buildings yet. They've completed their audits of the school. And so this is in here in case Train doesn't complete the audits of the police station and are not able to move forward this summer. So this will complete the replacement of all his AC units over there. So Capitol agreed to put this in here and then see if Train can move forward quickly, then we wouldn't use this.
So Mike, if I can ask on that, what's the holdup? If they've done the school buildings already, why haven't they done the town?
I don't know. He said he was getting ready to schedule the town buildings, but he just finished up all the schools.
And who is he coordinating with on that? Is that you or is that Chris?
No, each building, so at the police department, he'll coordinate with the police chief. Highway, he'll coordinate with Keith. I've given him all their contact information. At town hall, he'll coordinate with Chris.
Okay.
The COA with Beth, but
okay.
chances are we're hopefully not doing anything at the COA or the town hall. But
So,
If I may, I think they originally started with the schools, only because the schools were the department that reached out to them in the first place. And so it was a natural step into not only that, I think with the size of those buildings, that's where the most potential savings would be.
Yep, that's fine.
and the most money for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had heard rumblings that there was a breakdown in communication on the scheduling side. So it sounds like the engineer from Train has the contact information for the building contacts that he needs to do that. So
Right.
in his court to reach out to Beth and Chris and Chief Clark. I'm assuming Chief Simmons for fire department.
Yes.
Keith
Yep.
for highway.
Yep.
Love for water. Was that Frank?
Yep.
Okay.
Mike, well, I appreciate like that plan. Is there a way that one person can have, like, rather than one person trying to coordinate with 10 different people, can we get one person who's on point to get them through the buildings? My understanding is they just need to go through and look at the infrastructure. And I say that because I remember in one of our conversations, and I think it may have actually been when we were in person at the middle school, they talked about the process, and it's really like, it's not like the school is phase 1 and the municipal buildings are phase 2. Like, this is like, that audit has to happen all together before we get to the next phase for the town. So is there, I mean, I know Beth is swamped right now, Chris is swamped right now. Like, is there a possibility that we can like delegate one point person to do it? And try to move it along?
No, I really wouldn't want to delegate anyone to bring someone into the police department,
Well, I mean, you're gonna need to have somebody from the fire department there with them, but.
Right. We don't know, they're the ones that know about their buildings. In the school department, they have a facilities manager who manages all the buildings, so he knows all the buildings. We don't have that. So the buildings are more or less managed by the police department.
Mike, maybe it's not about them, maybe it's just having a central coordinator to like help facilitate all the appointments and get it all organized. And then obviously still, the chief would still walk around or whoever he designates.
It hasn't been difficult before. I mean, the guy's got 4 emails to contact and say, look, I'm doing audits on this day, and they say, fine, comes in. I mean, I don't see the big difficulty with that. This guy.
I think it's our concern, Mike, that we get it done, right? So we move forward and any opportunities we have to save money, that we're on top of them. So
He's had the emails and phone numbers for quite a long time, so it's up to him. As I said earlier, maybe it's just not a lot of benefit to train in the smaller buildings, so hopefully they come forward and coordinate it.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Next, under fire department is structural firefighting hose. They have some hose that is reaching its end of life, needs to be replaced, so that's $18,110. The purchase of 4 thermal imaging cameras, $54,000. Pumper replacement year 4 or 5, $140,250. And then mobile portable radios, $18,911.
And is that our portion of, is there gonna be any funding from the regional dispatch center on that? Right, because weren't they supposed to be giving us grants on the radios and all that?
They've applied for a grant, but right now they don't have it. So this is for his 4 new hires.
And can we just add an S to structural fire hoses? Because the idea that 18,000 per hose.
I forget how many, I don't know if Brad remembers the length of feet. I mean,
It was hundreds of feet. I don't remember the exact number,
yeah.
but it was either 300 or 500 feet. I don't remember which. I believe. And then a couple of these line items are being split between the ambulance account and the capital account, I believe.
Correct, yeah. The radios are 80/20.
Did they didn't bring up the ladder truck? I know that's coming to end of life too. They didn't talk about regionalizing that or anything in the capital plan, Mike?
They have not, no.
Didn't he talk about that when he was with us, about it's 2 years out, and I thought he had those discussions.
I believe that when the chief was with us, I could be wrong, that Michael had mentioned the regional thing, and the chief said that they had never looked into it, but it might be something I could, do some work on checking. But I don't know. Up until now, he hadn't done any.
He hadn't done anything.
Yeah, it's not in his 5-year plan.
We had someone from the comments chime in who knows more than us. It is 2,400 feet of hose in various diameters. So thank you very much to AF for.
So realistically, these hoses, multiple.
Album 4.
Really, really, really ridiculously long hose. All right.
Or a bunch of short ones with a lot of connections.
Right. Last item on here, Mike, is school lease to own.
Yep, so the schools said that their most important thing, they took a lot of stuff off. Obviously, they're not moving forward because of the train project. So they had 2 items, and one was minibus lease to own replacement cycle, $65,727. And they have one other for $15,000 on the next page.
Yeah.
Hey, before we go, Mike, that minibus thing,
Mhm.
is that something that if we were to, I assume that's to buy the minibus, right?
Correct.
The
Yep.
lease to own. If we were to buy it, is that something that could be used by, say, the Council on Aging and other, like Parks and Rec, like to do whatever they needed to do?
We didn't ask them that. I don't know whether they plan on using them for transporting students and athletes to events, so I don't know how much they'd be available.
Okay. Can we ask that? maybe
Sure.
when we're with them, or if you can shoot a note out to Dr. B beforehand.
And that's not used for school choice, right? If the towns, it's up to the towns for school choice, right? It's not, it's regular vans. They don't use minibuses for that, right? School choice.
No. For, what do you mean, school choice students from out of
To
town?
transfer students to the choice.
No.
All right.
All right.
So the next page was the asbestos remediation plan for 15K. Given what we went through, I think that makes sense.
And surprisingly, the majority of the asbestos in the Yale School, yeah, I found it interesting, is the adhesive and flooring. It's not, you think asbestos, you think the insulation around the pipes. You don't really think about the tiles on the floor and the adhesive to hold it down.
Ever would have thought of that, Brad, ever. See, same, I thought it would be the insulation around the heating.
Right, for the most part, they've gotten most of the installation taken care of, but it's the floor tiles and the adhesive that holds it down.
Yeah.
I'm still, oh, sorry, Jack.
Oh, no, I'm just chatting about asbestos.
I'm still stuck on us not putting in the automatic flushers and hand washers. I think about everything we've been through this past year.
Is that, no, that's a great point, mate. Is that something that we could look at CARES funds, Mike, since that's been carried out to the end of the year? I mean, that's.
Yeah, I don't know why they want to move forward with that. They may be doing that with their CARES funds.
Can we look at that for the other buildings too, Mike? Like the ability to, like anything we can do that's contactless or at least less touch areas?
Yep. Well, when you're talking about CARES under the new stimulus bill, we don't know what strings are attached yet. We're waiting to see that, but our allotment is 1.97 million.
Wait, we got more money?
Under the new bill that.
Oh, the one that just passed. Gotcha.
Just signed. I don't know. We just got the number. We don't have the strings that are attached. You know, the federal government's great at saying, here's money, but this is only what you can do with it. We haven't got that yet, but it's 1.97 million.
For Norton.
For Norton, yeah.
Wow.
Way to bury the lead, Mike. We're an hour.
I know.
Jeez. And how much roughly do we have remaining on the initial CARES Act funds?
Initial CARES Act is somewhere between 390,000, and we hope to hear soon on the first two applications for FEMA funds.
And I just want to say for the record, due to social distancing, you know, we've had to move our employees around in town hall, therefore needing additional wireless access points via CARES. Just saying.
Yeah, and technology support.
Well, technology support's a huge thing, right? Like,
just so you know, the meeting is being recorded.
But Michael, it's a valid point, right? Like we're moving our employees around and you know, it's just like when we moved them remote, right? We had to improve the VPN. You know, we had to improve the security that we had. We had to, what do we have to install across all the devices, Mike, all the laptops? There was some sort of Microsoft update, right, that everybody had to do just to get up to speed on security so that I mean, all those things, like, you laugh at it, but it's, you know, these are things that we had to do. I mean, you know, you have people in the office, you potentially have to go into into that break room to have a meeting. Like you think of Estelle's office, right? It's not, I think, big enough to hold multiple people in there trying to maintain a 6-foot distance, right? So she's moving somewhere else. I mean, it's a valid, I'm not saying skirt the system. It's a valid point.
Well, I 100% agree. I know the school funded a lot of the technology that they needed, laptops, Chromebooks, iPads for KM1. I mean,
yeah, I didn't understand why that happened, right? I mean, I know they said they had in the budget, but why wasn't that funded by CARES? I mean, you know, I don't think there were any plans to get, especially some of the younger kids, all the iPads and the Chromebooks.
Yep.
We should revisit that.
I think it was funded through CARES,
Yeah.
was my understanding.
Yeah,
I thought it was, and I thought it was taken straight from the budget.
I know there are a lot of Chromebooks
Mhm.
that were purchased through CARES. And that's how we purchase a lot of laptops for work.
But I think to Renee's point, I think that if we do end up needing Wi-Fi points within any area, that I think that is a defensible expense, as long as we can scrub the part from the minutes where it says that they were end of life.
Well, again, I'll go back to end of life. It doesn't necessarily mean replacement. If they're still supported from a security perspective, right there, you can keep them there. I mean, there are many, many companies, unfortunately, that have end of life equipment, but if it poses risk, it's a different story.
May I introduce you to my new sales rep, Renee?
Who's that?
You.
I'm buying, Renee. I'm buying.
All right, next was highway. So 36,000, year 4 or 5, for the Peterbilt with tank, and then a new Peterbilt dump truck. This would be payment 1 of 5. Keith said this is replacing, I didn't even remember that he had a Volvo dump truck, a 20-year-old Volvo dump truck. The mower, it's payment 2 of 4, 34,300, and a utility tractor, 33,000, payment 5 of 5. And then the bucket truck for the tree department, 53,400. That's payment 3 of 5. Next was library repaving, and mainly because Keith thinks that he can handle this. We've held off on that for now. And also, if the town hall project moves forward, they won't. That will be part of the whole project, part of the pavement. And then at at Everett Leonard, $11,024 for repairs to the pool house, and also they need work to make the chairlift compliant. So $11,024.
All right, and what does that leave for remaining balance in the account?
If you keep going.
Nope.
Hey, can I ask before we go, Mike, on the dump truck?
Yep.
Right, because that's a new purchase. That's not something that we can hold off for 1 year, like, and continue to use the other one.
He had said that the other one was on its last leg. He was having trouble finding parts, and it just didn't feel like it was safe to keep using it. So he really said he needed this.
I think.
All right. 725, 947. And oh, jeez. It's going sideways again.
There you go. So the water and sewer department, work on Cobb Street. They're going to use retained earnings, and this is the Cobb Street pump station, and that'll be $300,000. And then a generator. They had a fire in a generator at the Knollwood pump station, and they'd also use retained earnings for $100,000 to replace that generator. And in the water department, $33,000 for a Dodge Ram 1500 pickup, and wells 5 and 6, $725,000, and White Street at East Main to finish up that water project that they've been working on up there, $350,000. So the total for the whole plan from capital would be $656,818. From ambulance, $69,129. Total borrowing, this would be for the wells 5 and 6, $725,000. Water surplus, retained earnings, $400,000. Total, total sewer surplus, $400,000. Water surplus, $33,000. And other transfers, $350,000. That is money that's left in the Reservoir Street project that they'll be transferring to complete the West Street at White Street at East Main Street project. The balance in the account right now to begin with was $380,000. So we'll be recommending that money be transferred from free cash. The free cash right now is 1.9 million to the capital fund.
So Mike, if you're taking from free cash, how is that going to affect our bond rating when we try to go, if we have to do for financing on the projects?
It won't, because this is taking money from free cash going on a capital fund. So that won't affect you.
They look at that as an acceptable transfer for cash.
Because it's
CapEx.
one-time expense. It's not going into budgets.
So it's capital expense, okay.
Yeah, capital expense.
Any other questions on this? I guess I have some, like, on water sewer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this has changed, but I do recall those folks over there are sitting on a rather sizable savings account. Is that where everything but wells 5 and 6 are coming from? And
right. Everywhere you see retained earnings, that's coming out of those funds.
So, but I mean, again, someone correct me if I'm wrong, they have north of $7 million sitting over there, right?
I'll check on that for you. I didn't bring that home with me.
That sounds about in the neighborhood. It's in the millions and more than 5, less than 10.
Definitely less than 10.
Okay.
Part of that was slated for something else, Jack, and it actually left us with like 2 million. I mean, it's still, like, again, right now, I think can be used. I don't know why we would borrow other than the rates are so low and we can, but.
Yeah. Well, I recall the reasoning behind that account was to fund water sewer projects. So things like this. So they're part of their annual plan or multi-year plan would be to put a certain amount into that. And that's the income from the rates plus their past earnings on all the other rates. I don't know, it just.
Yeah, I'll get the totals for you, and also what the Department of Revenue recommends that you maintain for retained earnings.
That would be helpful, because when we see what they've amassed over however many years, and then the fact that the rates are going up, and now that they're borrowing another $750,000, that's 3 red flags for me. I just want to understand it better.
Sure.
Yeah, and Mike, if those 2 check out, just to follow up on Jack's point, if those 2 check out, the rationale why we're going, I mean, more than just, yep, they're more than just, hey, we're doing it, they've got 3 million, we could borrow from it. I really would like to know why.
Yeah. Well, Frank will be at the meeting next Thursday, so.
And there's probably a very good reason, but I just.
All right.
And is there some point why it's just the Internal Revenue sort of enterprise accounts, they can't feed operational accounts to the town? That's why they're set up as enterprise accounts, correct? Are there any one-time exemptions or transfers later on down the road?
Well, you'll see when you see the revenue and expenditure sheet, you'll see the indirect costs that comes into our budget from the water and sewer. So they pay for their health insurance, direct costs, they pay like health insurance, they pay the full amount. Then for other departments like the treasurer, the accountant, myself, they pay a percentage based on what their budget is as a percent of the town budget. So Michelle calculates that all out, and we do receive payment from them for services that the town provides them.
Okay, so we do charge back, so they pay for the advantages of that the town,
Right.
if you will.
All right. So I think for my comfort, I would prefer holding off on voting on this until we talk to Frank about this line item in particular. I think everything else, I'm fine with. That's my big question.
And Brad, there was no discussion at any of the capital meetings about that?
I don't recall any questions on that. I think basically I just assumed where it was the finalization of the rebuilding of wells 5 and 6, that it was almost like a mortgage type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really recall any discussion about it.
And it could very well be that they have a policy that anything over, say, $500,000 gets borrowed versus that. It's just, I'm curious to know.
And like you said, Jack, right now the interest rates are very low, and it might make sense financially.
And I'm sure another thing that Frank will mention to you, and he put there to be determined, PFAS filtration. It's a big issue in the state right now, and I know that Frank is very concerned about that the state is going to require them based on whatever they're doing studies right now, and based on, he can explain more, but based on what the level of PFAS is, whether they require more equipment be installed in the treatment plant to address that. I know Mansfield's going through it right now. So he's concerned that it's a regional thing that he may get hit with, so they could be holding on to some money for that too. But I'm sure he'll be able to explain what projects they're planning on in the future.
And Mike, to your point on the PFAS, was everybody on the email that Frank had sent, or did he just send it to me? Remember I asked about the pipe plan and stuff? I don't know if everybody, but he explained this PFAS in pretty good detail. If not, I can send it to everyone just as awareness. It was just one of the follow-up questions that we had at our meetings. He shot me a note and then mentioned this in a email after that. Okay, if it doesn't sound familiar, I'll send it along. I'll find it and send it along. It was pretty interesting, and it kind of made me think of our conversation with Dr. Beta about the mandates, right? Like you get stuck between a rock and a hard place because you have to pay and you have no choice,
Right.
And you don't know exactly what they're going to be.
Right. All right. So, Mike, I'm assuming it's okay if we don't vote on this evening?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, super.
Jack, I really got to tell you, with such a small agenda, I thought you'd get us through before 9 o'clock.
You know, Renee, I tried my best, but you guys like to talk. I did
go on a 15-minute rant about HR. Just for the record.
You went on another one after that too. I can't remember what it was, but.
I have to go because someone's making me get on the Zoom in 10 hours.
Mike, speaking of that, I haven't received an acceptance from her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was looking. Oh, wait, yes, I did. Never mind. It came through after I looked.
All right, see you at 7 a.m.
Okay, 7:30, 7:30.
7:30, okay.
Wait, are we done?
I just want to, I'd like to just throw one thing out. It's got nothing to do with anything, but where I won't be on the committee too much longer. I am the board's representative to the GATRA. And we had, as an oversight, not had a representative really for a while. And to be very honest, with the Zoom meetings and stuff, I missed just about all of them. They weren't, I think there were only 3 of them. But I want to make sure that you remember to appoint another person to get involved with the GATRA.
Thank you, Brad.
Transportation system.
So Brad, that's the 2 things that you're representing on, GATRA in the capital group?
Finance, capital, yes.
And then, I think is that?
Then I don't do
anything else?
anything.
No, wasn't there something we were doing jointly?
I don't,
It got thwarted by the pandemic. I can't remember now what it was.
yeah,
I'll think.
I just go to a meeting when they tell me.
I hear you.
That's life right now.
Yep.
Pretty crazy. All right,
Yeah.
Mike,
I don't really remember.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up.
It's just that I got a mailing on the GATRA thing today, so it was fresh in my mind, so I wanted to pass it along.
good time. Mike, is there anything else? All right. But before we go, I would just like to, there's a member of our town hall family that experienced a loss this week. Just want to let them know that they and their family are in our thoughts, and we hope they're getting through it okay. And that's it. With that said, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second,
You got a motion and a second. Meg,
yes.
Michael,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Renee.
yes.
I too vote yes. That's our one and only vote tonight.